Lithuania is nestled on the Baltic coast between Russia and Latvia. And here's a surprise, it's been scientifically proven to be geographically the centre of Europe. Fitting then that it joined the EU in 2004, a fact that was celebrated in 2009 when the capital, Vilnius, became European Capital of Culture. Seeing the city now, you'd hardly believe Lithuania endured decades of systematic occupation by the Soviets. Independence was only finally achieved in 1991. But Lithuanians are a hardy bunch, and since liberation, Vilnius has blossomed into a Baltic stunner. Plenty of development and renovation have brought the city into the 21st century. This is one of the largest Baroque old towns in Eastern Europe, tucked into a valley between the Vilnia and Neris rivers. There are plenty of snaking lanes and cobbled streets to explore. It's a great place to get lost in for a few days. Charming hotels like this are dotted across the old town. Well, all right, maybe not all quite as nice as this one. These sort of buildings were used as glassblowers' workshops originally. Then this became a tavern, and then 300 years ago the church bought it and added rooms. Now it's the swanky place to stay. Not bad, eh? After lavish restorations, this is a prime example of the progressiveness of a city that's trying hard to maintain a traditional feel, yet slot into the modern demands of tourists, as more and more first-time visitors venture into the country. I can get used to this. It's not a bad place to tell you about a bit of Vilnius' background either. Vilnius was chosen as the capital finally because it lay on some key trade routes. Once people moved in and a settlement formed, the dukes built a castle for protection. It was the grand old Duke Gediminas who founded the city. Allegedly, he got the idea while out hunting. He stopped for a rest and dreamt of an iron wolf on the hills that roared with the volume of 100. So, he took this as a clear sign any settlement here would be world famous. And you know what? He was right. This statue commemorates the legend. Whether the legend's true or not is kind of irrelevant. Vilnius has been a centre of arts, culture and learning for centuries. And nowhere is this more apparent than the university. Founded in the 16th century, for a long time this was the only school of higher education in Lithuania. It's had a pretty eventful history, during which it's blossomed, withered and rebloomed. As a hotbed of rebellion, it's been forcibly closed and then reopened to much celebration. Now, in a way, it's part of the country's DNA, holding and evolving its beliefs, traditions and culture. There are over 20,000 students, and although it's not your classic tourist attraction, it is still a very pleasant place to visit.
Where's your homework?
Half a century of communist rule is brought vividly to life in Vilnius at the KGB Museum of Genocide Victims. The building's pretty much as it was when the KGB left in 1991. The spying equipment, stuff for fingerprinting, and a whole network of cells, some specially designed for torture, others for solitary confinement. And if you were a prisoner, this is where it would all start. You'd be locked in here whilst you waited to be processed. These cells were usually home to Lithuanian freedom fighters and dissidents who opposed the initial Soviet occupation, then the Nazis, and finally the second Soviet occupation, which resulted in repression, mass evictions to Siberia, and the attempted dissolution of national identity. This was the execution chamber. Over on the wall you can still see some of the bullet marks, and that's the drain where they used to wash away the blood. It's creepy here. You get a real sense of the paranoia of what it was like to be constantly spied on. Vilnius's television tower
at over 300 metres, is the highest building in the country. But it's more famous as the place where 14 unarmed protesters lost their lives and 700 more were injured when Soviet troops stormed the tower in an attempt to quash the independence movement in 1991. The victims of the so-called January events at the tower are buried at Antakalna Cemetery, a profound stop-off. Also buried here is a large number of Napoleon's Grand Army, who perished on the famous retreat from Moscow. Ujapis! To you too, you might be thinking. But actually it translates as the other side of the river. And like the left bank in Paris, it's where all the arty types hang out. And guess what? It's an independent republic. The result is an unusual, interesting little district. Cosy cafes, art galleries and artists' workshops. It's only just over half a square kilometre in size, and the government doesn't recognise it. But it does have its own flag, president and army. All 12 of them. Seriously. And of course their own constitution. I love this, it really sums up the spirit of Ujapis. Up here we've got everyone has the right to die, but this is not an obligation. Everyone has the right to love, and further down we've got a dog has the right to be a dog, and a cat is not obliged to love its owner, but must help in times of need. And those crazy ones might explain why further down we've got everyone has the right to be misunderstood. But at the bottom is my favourite bit. Here we have do not defeat, do not fight back, do not surrender. Some people in Vilnius just won't give up the revolution.